All right, thank you. Welcome all. This is the PEG Access Advisory Committee meeting of November 12th. I want to note that this meeting is being recorded and will later be posted and broadcast for public viewing. My name is Carlin Reed. I'm the chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee, and I'm going to start this with a roll call of the various members of our committee. When I see your name, please respond here or present or whatever other indication you so choose. For the members, Court Booth.
Present.
Vince Carlson.
Here.
Ruth Lauer.
Here.
Carlin Reed, myself, I'm here as well. We're missing Scott Hopkinson. He may be able to join us later on, so we do have a quorum. Okay, I also want to note that we've got 2 seats vacant on the committee, so if you're interested, please submit your green card and talk to either our select board liaison, Matt Johnson, who's on this video, or myself about this particular program, about this committee. Okay, let's move on to the agenda. We've done the roll call. Let's do the meeting in minutes. You have before you the September 30 PAC minutes that Ruth has kindly drafted, and thank you very much, Ruth, for doing that.
You're very welcome.
Ruth, I have one edit that I want you to note, and it's on the second page, using the September 30 meeting. In the paragraph that starts, Ms. Reed reported that there have been discussions regarding feasibility.
Yes.
Okay, there's a number in here that says more than 30 households of the property line. That number 30 should be 300. You see that? So please change 30 to 300.
Line 3. Line 3 says 300.
Okay, good. Then I just want to let you know that's the change that I had done from the previous version. So that's the only edit that I had to the version that you had sent me earlier.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any other changes?
Members of the committee, do you have any other changes for Ruth's edits?
Nope.
Court, Vince?
Nope. Nope.
Okay. All right. Then can I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Nope. I'll second Ruth's motion.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote. Court Booth.
Aye.
Vince Carlson.
Aye.
Ruth Lauer.
Aye.
Carlin Reed, myself, aye. Okay. They've been approved as amended. Next item. Oh, just a quick note, we have a hard stop at 10:15, so whatever we don't get done by that time, we're going to carry over to the next meeting. So we'll be finished by 10:15. We've got a schedule issue. All right, speaking of schedules, I want you to take a look at your calendars, please, because I'd like to set up the meeting dates for the rest of 2020 and 2021 up through the end of May. And I have listed on the agenda some suggested dates. And those dates are, and once a month, they're all on Thursdays. It's roughly the second Thursday of each month. December 10, January 14, February 11, March 11, April 8, and May 6. And I'm presuming that all of them will be done via Zoom. Now, Jeremy, I know you're the keeper of the Zoom calendar. I'm hoping when you have a chance that you verify that those dates at this time, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. will be available. Jeremy, right now, do you see any issue with those dates? December 10, January 14, February 11, March 11, April 8, May 6.
Unfortunately, we need a little bit to check. But if you want to send me, if it's possible, just a note after the meeting, I can get back to you more definitively.
That sounds good. I'll send you a reminder about that. Those are the dates I'm proposing. Now, let's go around. Do we have any issues with those dates? Court, how about you? I'm trying to schedule away from Tuesday so you don't conflict with school committee.
Yeah, on 2 of those dates, March 11 and May 6th, I'll be departing at around 10 o'clock for parent-teacher meetings. But I'll be here at 9.
Okay, that's good. I'll keep that in mind. The May 6th one will be the one just before we have the enterprise hearing. So that meeting in particular will be somewhat useful to show up for at least the first hour, because we're talking about the budget and whether or not we're going to take a position on the budget before the enterprise hearing. Vince, what about you? How about those dates? How do they look to you?
That looks good as of now. Thursdays or Fridays are generally good for me.
And these are on Thursdays. Okay, good. All right, Ruth, what about your schedule? How does that sound to you?
It looks good this far out.
That's why I do it this far out.
Yay!
Okay, Matt, what about you? Are you going to be able to come those days?
Yes, let's see. Yeah, in fact, I've just put them in my calendar, so no conflicts. It looks like a very nice time slot to me.
Thank you very much. I was hoping it would work for everybody. Phil, I know you're substituting for Erin Stevens today. I don't know if you know her schedule, but can you think of any reason why those days would not work?
I do not know, but I will be honest. I think I'm going to be stepping into this position role for the studio on a more frequent basis, so I do not have any problems with these dates.
Excellent. Well done. Well done. That's good. Okay, so let's do this. I'd like to schedule the meetings for December 10, January 14, February 11, March 11, April 8, and May 6. They'll be by Zoom calls, and you'll get the agendas as usual. I'll also be sending reminders out 2 days before the meeting, so you have a chance to actually see what the heck is in the packet. Because sometimes, like this time, there'll be a lot of stuff. Okay, all right. Ruth, we don't need to vote on the meeting dates, do we?
I don't believe so.
Good, okay.
This is a consensus matter.
All right, well, I think we have it. All right, just a quick note, the town meeting is set right now for June 13, and the enterprise hearing where the PEG budget's going to be heard is set for May 11. Those dates are noted in the agenda as well. Okay, and all meetings for the PAC are going to be from 9 a.m. till 10:30 a.m. by Zoom. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item. And Phil, this is where you start. We're moving on to the internet update. Okay, Phil.
Right.
What do you
Okay.
have?
Well, thank you, Carlin. Thank you, everybody. I know I haven't met everybody in person. I think I've seen most everybody on a Zoom meeting at some point over the past year. But just very quickly, I am Phil Lepshevitz. I am the station manager here at Minuteman Media Network. I was hired and started at the beginning of the year. So it's been 10 months. So again, Matt, I know, for example, I have not actually met you in person, but I've seen you plenty of times. So, and Vince, I think we just spoke the other day. So again, pleasure to, put a face and a voice together here. So again, my apologies for not, meeting all you folks in person. I do hope to get around to that soon, but well, at least now you can connect my name and my face and my voice as we such. So Erin will not be here today. She asked me to step in. And again, as I stated a few minutes ago, she's interested in having me pick up this role on a more frequent basis. So I'm just going to give you a quick update on what we've been up to really for the past month. And I know Erin had some questions she had posed to the committee here, again, about public versus education, commercial versus non-commercial education stat. The education coordinator status, just start with that right away. Nothing for this position at this point. Nothing has changed. So we're still in the same 3-position staff that we have here, which of course is myself, our lead producer, which is Isabel Germino, excuse me, and our technician Mark Pauley, which again, hopefully you all have met in the past year. Mark is our old timer, really. I think he's been here for about 2 years, where myself and Isabel started about the same time at the beginning of the year. But again, it's been a pleasure. So I'm just going to give you a couple of things that we've been up to for the month of October. And if you have any questions on anything, please do let me know. A lot of what we've been doing, of course, has been via Zoom. So there are several things that we've done live and several things that we've done recorded. So for example, we've for Concord municipal coverage, we've had 4 live Zoom select board meetings, 3 Concord Carlisle joint school committee meetings, and 2 finance committee meetings for them, again, just in the month of October. For recorded meetings, mostly provided by Jeremy and Chris, we've had a total of 38 different committee meetings that have been sent to us. And what I mean by that, of course, is that we get these recordings, we just add a couple tags on them, and then we post them up immediately to YouTube, and we'll also then schedule them for the TV. And again, as most of these are municipal, they will go on government channel 8, right? I should know that one by heart. We also do Carlisle, so we have 2 recorded Carlisle Zoom meetings. Tim over there has been very kind to send me the meetings as they become available. And we also, this past month, had the Carlisle Special Town Meeting, which was October 17th. So that was a big on-site production. All 3 of us were there. Oh, sorry, there was. Oh, this is weird. I'm starting to hear like an echo here.
I suspect others need to mute. It's perhaps David Allen, because he just joined.
Okay, yeah. That was
I've asked all the committee members and the observers to put themselves on mute until they're speaking, please. It'll help avoid the double echo.
Thank you. Again, that was that was just a very bizarre little feedback loop. So again, as I say, we had Carlisle Town Meeting in the middle of October, which went over well. There was some concern about the weather, but it started off kind of as a cold, miserable day, but cleared up. It was cool, but they were able to carry the meeting out, and everything went very well. Of course, we've been working with the high school this year. Obviously, football is, well, I believe it's been postponed till the winter months. But in the meantime, we were working with Aaron Junkus, the sports director, and we were able to cover several of the games that basically was the girls varsity soccer, girls varsity field hockey. Also, a community member covered the boys varsity soccer games as well. So we had several games covered. One of them was live. We actually did do it live. We get back in here. So maybe somebody can, there we go. One of them was live. That was the annual Kicks for Cancer program, which we were able to do from the field, the memorial field. We've also been working with Carlisle Council of Aging. We've been had 5 productions this past month. Just to kind of put things in a little bit of a perspective, one thing that's nice about YouTube is that you're able to get some statistics and things. So for example, in the last 28 days, in all the productions that we posted, we've had over 4,465 views on all these different projects that we've been working on. A couple things just to follow up on. I think it was mentioned earlier in last month's meeting. Again, working with the Robbins House, 5 different videos have been in production. Working with the folks there. A BD Center Welcome Back video. We've also worked with our friends over at the Concord Players for a recorded As You Like It video, which premiered here on the Minuteman Media YouTube page. A couple other things coming up. We will be working with the Concord Players again. We just had Veterans Day events yesterday, which we were able to get up, not live, but shortly. The events started at 8 o'clock, but we were able to get them up by noon, not only on the YouTube page, but also on the TV as well. Working with our friends again over at the Carlisle. Oh, also in a different capacity, we were working with the Concord's Council of Aging, being able to provide them with some equipment for, they did a drive-through breakfast yesterday. So we were able to provide them with a small PA system that we were able to have. So hopefully everything went well for that. We gave them a quick tutorial on Tuesday. So again, working with Carlisle Council of Aging again for an intergenerational holiday musical. That's been really kind of fun, actually. A lot of members of the community have been contributing videos of themselves performing music in some very basic things done on a phone, other things a little bit more professionally done. One young lady, for example, I guess she's a musician, and she's from Carlisle, and this is, I think, her first video, so we're able to incorporate that. And also, again, working with the high school, the music department is putting together a music video, and we were working with Deb Smith, as well as a couple of community members on this production. So this is going to be a real interesting piece as this all kind of comes together. It almost had the feel of a big production, if you will. We had support from not just the school community members, but also even the municipal light department was able to help us out with a few things here. So that's everything just in a quick nutshell for the month of October. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, I'm going to make one observation, then I'll open it to the floor for questions. Phil, I was doing a quick count as you were rattling off numbers. Are you telling me that in the month of October, your station has done over 60 videos?
That would probably be correct. Again, mostly Zoom videos. So again, recordings, like how, taking this video post, and then again, just doing a little tweaking to it, putting some information at the front and on the back, posting it up onto YouTube, and then scheduling it for the TV, correct?
Good. Okay, I'll have another question about the education coordinator position, but I want to go to the other committee members first. Vince, I saw your hand up. You had a question for Phil. Go ahead, Vince.
Yes, Phil, I wondered on the Zoom postings in terms of other committees and boards, are all of the ones that are currently meeting, are they getting posted up there, or are there some committees and boards that have either declined or don't know about the fact that they can be posted?
That's a really interesting question. I've basically, things that have come to me, we've posted. How this has all kind of come up organically, so it's quite possible there are committees and boards that don't know that if they record their Zoom meeting, we can post it. Others seem to have gotten on board. That may have to do with the fact that I noticed that there are on different boards, somebody may kind of be in several locations and they're aware of what's available. In fact, Vince, we had the conversation the other day. So I think it was the housing authority. Right. Yeah. And I was not aware of that. And, again, they were not aware of it. But, again, our conversation the other day, hopefully will address that. But there probably are other committees and boards that certainly if they're recording, we will be happy to post them. I'm not sure what might be the best thing to do to get that out, on the internal network, if you will.
One thing that we could do as that is, Matt, during our chair's breakfast, which is this coming Wednesday, the 18th, as part of my report, I can suggest that folks remember to have the meetings recorded and then sent over to the station for prompt posting. How about that?
I just wanted to mention that I think that for some committees, Jeremy really facilitates the recording process on behalf of the committee and for the town. And I think that maybe some committees may feel that, if it's not sort of the town facilitated, and of course, Jeremy can't be everywhere at once, that somehow that recording process can't happen. But I think it is the case that, the chair, for example, could just start the recording. And if they can, find a suitable way to store the recording and upload it, then, and sometimes this can be done to the cloud. I don't know if there's conventions for the installation of Zoom that the town has for where those recordings go, but it could be a quite simple process if it's set up the right way. So Carlin, I would suggest mentioning that because in this time, this is more than just simply public access for now. It's also just creating a record of the town's deliberations. I mean, in a lot of different senses, that just is invaluable as you go back and try to understand how decisions were made and what the contemporary issues were.
Good point. All right, other questions from the committee members? Cord or Ruth, do either of you have questions for Phil?
Well, I'll just offer a comment. I was most impressed with the report and the activity, Phil.
Thank you.
I think it reflects what Frank Breen has been telling me for a decade, and that is that we weren't really reaching our capacity, and I think we are now. So good to hear. Can you speak a little bit about, and perhaps I missed this, the reliance on internet versus dedicated Comcast customer access to programming? Phil, do we have anything on that?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, obviously, by having things up on, I guess are trying to run parallel tracks.
Right.
So anytime we have any production, we're trying to make them available in both areas. YouTube is like video on demand. I mean, that's, I think, the best way to look at it. So at 3 in the morning, if you were to go over to the site, you can watch whatever it is you're looking for. Whereas if it's something, again, be it a select board meeting or something, it's at a scheduled time that it comes on. And just also, we are, I don't want to make the assumption everybody in the community has access to the internet, and that's the thing. So if they do not have internet access, but they do have access on to just the TV, they can get, see what's playing. We do also have a schedule of what is playing on that given day. But again, it kind of loops in this fashion of the community bulletin board area. So it usually plays in between programming. I don't know if this is really answering your question well. I do know that we've been trying to be more consistent with what our programming is. So for example, the Council of Aging is very interested in, when they do their newsletter, always having, I believe it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, programming that will be, Concord-based Council of Aging, that they can say, this block from say 10 to 2 on Tuesdays, and then 4 to 6 on Thursdays, or 4 to 8 on Thursdays would be, programs that might be of interest to the community.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'm thinking, Carlin, that given our access to Comcast reporting, we know as much about community cord cutting as any committee does.
That's a good point, Court. One of the things we're going to be talking about is when we invite our Comcast representative to come join us to address that particular issue, to see how it's affecting Concord, Carlisle, as opposed to the rest of the state and the rest of the nation. I did send some data information in the packet this time that has some statistics about what's going on with Concord and Carlisle regarding subscribership, revenues. It's a whole bunch of stuff. And it's a lot of information that I put together over the last, 3 weeks. But that's one of the data points that can help show what's going on with Concord subscribership as opposed to Massachusetts, especially. Okay, now, Ruth, I haven't heard from you. And after Ruth, I'm going to turn to Matt to see if either of you have questions for Phil. Ruth, go ahead. And Ruth, you're still on mute, even though I can see you're wanting to talk. So please try again.
There you go.
I do. Okay,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm impressed by the numbers of discrete activities into the town. 60 new activities in 1 month, I think is wonderful. I would like to see them scheduled multiple times on our channels, in addition to the on-demand capacity of YouTube. I think that's great. We can always catch the middle of the night person, but it's hard to think that we invest the time and the effort for a one-time view, and doing it again and again on a schedule or not, I think has a lot of benefits. Now, I will again referring to Frank Green, because he has so many hours and years in. We've all watched 10-year-old April 19 parades. They're just as good 10 years later as they were the first year. We should be looking at these things because it's us, not because we are advertising anything except us, and we need more opportunities to do that.
Absolutely. I can say that, again, that is an area we are working on. On one hand, when something, particularly a government meeting, has taken place, we want to have it play a few times, and we want to have that up quickly. Other programming, just because of staffing, we tend to give it a month, so we're doing the scheduling, we're in the middle of November, but I'd say the last week of November, we'd be scheduling for December. So it's those programs that are kind of evergreen that are the ones that'll get programmed in easier, just because for the month of December or any given month, it's hard to say what, government function meetings or, committee meetings are taking place. But no, you're absolutely right. And we will definitely make that more of an effort to be on top of that.
Okay,
Thank you.
did you have anything else for Phil?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn over to Matt. Matt, it's your turn to grill Phil. Have fun.
Far from it, actually. I was just going to express my appreciation, and I think as well that of the Public Ceremonies and Celebrations Committee for the work that Minuteman Network did to film the commemoration of Veterans Day yesterday, and especially under the circumstances where we really, frankly, could not invite the public at large to attend. It's just a very important service. And so I'm very thankful. Just wanted to express that.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. I agree with you. Watching the video of the cannon fire at the end was a lot of fun, especially with the flames coming out. I like that part. I actually took a screenshot of that. It was good.
That's great.
I'm going to turn this over to members of the public since we're running out of schedule. But before I do, though, I want to touch on one piece, Phil, that you mentioned it. That was the education coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about not having that person on board. I don't know how the other committee members feel about this, but I think now is the time, not later, to be hiring the education coordinator for two reasons. One, the data packet that I sent around shows that we, meaning MMN, can afford to hire somebody now. The position's been authorized. We have enough funds. I don't see a financial reason for not doing it. But the second, and perhaps the most important reason, more important reason, is during the league's October 2nd video. It was a First Friday program. I asked the superintendent of schools, Lori Hunter, whether she could use the services of an education coordinator now. And she said rather emphatically, yes, yes, yes. So I think we have an expression from the schools, and Court, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I think we have an expression from the schools that an education coordinator's services would be worthwhile having now, even though you don't necessarily have physical access to a lot of the students. They're still doing their video projects. Okay, briefly on that point, Phil, what do you think?
Well, again, it's a position that we're lacking. We feel it every day. There's no doubt about it. We would love to have it filled. Unfortunately, that's something that, for my position, what I can do, I can basically take the power of persuasion and move that forward. But it's definitely something that we really, the sad part is that we were in the process of filling this position in February, March. Of course, then everything kind of came to a standstill, and we've had to adapt. And again, not that the enthusiasm here, again, Isabel particularly, is I think she's very happy to pick up the mantle of doing the as much as she can, which is fabulous. We couldn't have asked for a better person to do this. And of course that just adds to her workload. So it's, I think the days of you're hired for one position and that's all you do are over. Now it's again Mark, who is our technician. I mean, this gentleman loves to get on out and also work the camera and doing a lot of technical production. So again, not that somebody who's versed in the education world isn't needed, but again, for the time being, we're doing the best we can. And again, I wish I can give you more of an answer than that.
Thank you, Ruth, and then Court. Ruth.
I believe that in any new position, there is a ramping up period. And it seems to me that this period, while the new coordinator could not have hands-on with students, he or she could learn about how the district works, how the classrooms work, how other pieces of his or her role would work, because it's not, I believe, not limited to a K-12 experience. I believe we have adult ed out there. We have other educational activities that this new person will have to learn. And I I don't know if I'm concurring or stating. I think now is a good time. And that brings me to the second question. Who gets to decide? Is it something that this committee simply recommends that we fulfill that role? Or do we sit back for somebody else to say, by the way, we've hired somebody? I know that this committee does not get into the interview process. I know that. But what is our role?
That's a good
And
question, Ruth.
I don't know if that's a Matt question or a town manager question. This committee is an animal belonging to the select board.
Well, let's put Court on right now, then we'll put Matt on the hot seat. Court, what do you think?
I believe that an advisory committee is not restricted from advocacy when it's activities within its domain. This is within our domain to offer advice and counsel and recommendation. I think Ruth makes a good point about ramping up, but I think there's another point as well, and that is that some features of our lives have gotten a little more efficient as we sit at home on Zoom. But video production and education has not gotten more efficient. It's gotten quite complex, and some things take more time and more effort and more energy, including supporting students and teachers. So I think we have a reasonable argument, and perhaps this is where Dr. Hunter was coming from, that we need an ed coordinator perhaps now more than before, because things don't happen spontaneously and on the fly and in person. And so I think the sheer work for the education coordinator actually could be a little more burdensome and therefore a little more important than pre-COVID.
Thanks, Court. Matt, are you ready, or shall I go to Vince?
I don't want to anticipate the goals discussion, which I think also gets into charter issues. But just for the sake of this one question that's before us, I would say that, yes, it is important for the Public Access Advisory Committee to form its opinion and then to state that opinion about the efficiency or lack thereof of the service, because perhaps a resource is missing that's been budgeted. But that expression is to us, the select board, and then the town manager is accountable to the select board, and then the whole Minuteman network is accountable to the town manager. So it does seem circuitous. Sure, ideally, you all would see eye to eye and be able to make progress without that intervention. But that's how the process is supposed to work.
Got it. Thank you. Hey, Vince, how about you? Do you want to weigh in on this?
Well, I'm not sure I quite understand the division of labor here between what might currently be going on in terms of, I don't want to call it video multimedia education within the classroom setting now, and whether this education coordinator would essentially be fulfilling that same role, or whether it would be a broader role in some fashion.
Okay, that's a good question. Phil, earlier you had said that the position for education coordinator had been posted. Do you happen to remember roughly what the job description would do? Or if you had an education coordinator, how would you use him or her in that position?
I don't have, I'd have to dig into my paperwork a little bit more. I honestly was not focusing in that area. Just getting, prepared for the meeting here. I was focusing on more of the current questions that I thought would be coming up. So I don't have an answer for you for the moment.
Okay, that's fair. I just want you to, if you could, pass along the message that the PEG Advisory Committee is advising that now is a good time and now is the proper time to start the education coordinator search once again.
Absolutely. I will pass that on. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm about ready to open up to public comment for a few minutes, but Ruth goes first. Ruth, I see your hand. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I think in the spirit of a definitive recommendation to the board, I so move. That this board make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to follow through with that process.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, which I'm actually supporting. Do we have a second for this motion?
Second,
All right, excellent. We have a motion and a second. And is there any further discussion on this motion for a recommendation to proceed with the hiring of the education coordinator as a recommendation to
I would
MMN?
suggest changing it to the select board since the board of selectmen no longer exists.
Oh, boo hiss. Okay, the select
Okay.
board it is.
All right, Ruth, since you're taking the minutes, what type of motion are you revising this to? That we,
I am revising it to that the PEG Access Advisory Committee is recommending to the select board that it follow through with the education coordinator hiring process.
all right. And Vince,
That MMN follow through.
Mm,
I mean, the select board is not hiring.
And
you could say the
no,
MMN.
the town is not,
Then how about if we rephrase it, since there's a question about this, that the town follow through with hiring the
yes,
education coordinator position. Is that good?
yes.
Okay. Vince, you had done the second. Are you clear on the second? Is that still acceptable?
yes.
All right.
Second,
Okay. We're going to have a vote. Unless-
Question,
Court, go ahead.
I'll turn to Matt maybe, and others, the appropriateness of school committee rep voting on something like this. What's your thinking?
I think it's
If you're-
appropriate because
If you're
you're,
a member of the committee, you're acting.
Yeah,
as a member
I
of the
actually think
Yeah.
it's probably pretty important to hear that perspective.
Yeah, well, you'll
One
always
way or
get my
another.
perspective.
we want your vote too. Okay, I'm going to call the roll call vote on this motion. But I'm going to start with Vince first. Vince, how do you vote?
aye,
Ruth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Court, what's your vote?
Aye.
And Carlin's vote is aye as well. All right, you have a vote recommendation. Phil, please take that a little more formal than just, oh, it's a good idea. We actually are recommending that this position be filled.
And I'll report out during my liaison report next Monday.
Please do. I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Matt.
And if Ruth could forward me the motion, please.
Yes, will do.
All right. All right. Now let's switch gears. We're running about 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so I'm going to allow some time for any public comments on what we've discussed to date. We have several members of the public here. Does anybody want to make a comment or ask a question and we're focusing on Phil and MMN station and how things are being run. Any questions? Raise your hand or do something else to say, hey, I've got, okay, Frank Breen, go ahead and give your name and address, please.
My name is Frank Breen, and I live at 48 Phillip Farm Road in Concord. Yeah, the thing I've noticed is on channel on the TV version, the Comcast version of the channels there's this COVID call running across the screen, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows about COVID by now. So and it does kind of make the picture that isn't very good to start with look even worse. So I don't know how long that needs to be. Just my recommendation would be to, get rid of that and just leave the picture without COVID warnings or whatever it is. That's my comment.
Okay, Phil, did you catch that? Did you understand what Frank is asking?
Yeah, there's the ticker that's running on all the channels that has COVID information. We are basically doing that as a service to the community, so they're aware of what current information is available. So anytime somebody just tunes in, they can go to that. But I will pass that information forward because again, we're working not just in my decision. It's actually a decision that's made up on a higher level in communications with the town and town manager's office.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Any other questions from the public for Phil about the station at this point?
I wonder if I could pose a very quick question for a very quick answer to Frank.
Mhm.
Well, Frank, are you of a mind that it's unnecessary because of our heightened awareness, and or because it is degrading the output in some way? Is it also the latter? Is that your concern?
Well, I'm just concerned about the look of the, the look of the picture on the screen. That's all I care about, really.
Okay.
And yeah, and I'm pretty sure that everybody knows that COVID is bad or whatever. I don't know. 'Cause,
Personal opinion, I don't mind flogging the PSAs about a pandemic, but I wanted to hear you about whether it interferes with the quality of the programming going on. Thank you.
yeah, I would say it does. Yeah.
All right, any other comments from members of the public? Going once, twice? All right, let's go move on with the agenda. Okay, the next thing we're going to be talking about, oh, before we do that, I want to touch on two things very quickly, and one of them is for Jeremy. How do we go about updating the website with the current information about who's on the committee and their terms and that sort of thing? Do I send that information to you, Jeremy, or do I send it in to somebody else?
So every web page is different. I anticipate probably for your page, Erin has the permissions for it. She has the permissions for each web page. So, and I only have them for some. So I probably would contact Erin.
Okay, so Phil, if you want to let Erin know that I'm going to be sending her updates for the website because we have some information that needs to be revised there. And the second question was, I heard that there's a biennial satisfaction survey that the town is currently working on, and I guess this is a question for Phil. I heard this at the last select board meeting as part of the town manager's report. Now, in the previous biennial satisfaction survey that goes to all the residents, there were two questions about PEG access contained in that survey. And in a previous meeting, I'd asked if those two questions be repeated. Phil, do you know if those two PEG access questions are going to be contained in the biennial satisfaction survey?
No, at this point, I do not know. I will look into it.
Okay. Okay. I'm hoping they are because I'd like to do a data analysis of how people's opinions change. I think one question was, have you ever heard of MMN? Hopefully it's changed over the last 2 years. So that was the question I had on that.
But Carlin, I believe we had some conversation about this at our last meeting. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I thought Erin indicated that this survey, if it's the one that comes out of the finance department, was under discussion whether it would actually go forward at this moment. Maybe Matt knows more from more current reports. Our last meeting was a while ago.
Right. Matt, do you have any other updates besides what you've heard so far? And do you know what we're talking about, right?
No, I missed it.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. A biennial satisfaction survey. It's sent out to the customer saying, how satisfied are you with the various?
Yeah. So the town manager reviewed that in our last meeting, but I don't have much more detail. It sounds like the majority of the content is the same, with probably the notable exception of the COVID response questions. So because it's very important to continue to get like a longitudinal assessment to have the same questions year after year for most of it. So no, I don't have further details.
Okay. All right. We'll see.
But I do believe that survey has been finalized and is being administered. Yeah.
Okay.
Or soon will be.
That I would restate my ouch. We were invited to participate at the last one. I'm disappointed that we did not receive a similar.
Well, and I should say I'm not 100% certain, but I have not seen any draft.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we haven't seen draft. Tell you what, I'll reach out to the town manager's office and see if I can get a copy of the draft, at least to see if the PEG access questions are included in that draft. Okay.
In order to save us some time, if this is going out, I'm assuming it would go out sharpish and maybe before our next meeting. Could we have a quick nods and twitch response to, do we want to participate? Do we want the same questions? Would we put something else in?
All right, nods and twitches.
Otherwise, we won't be able to participate at all because you would be asking us to come to wait for our input until we know
Okay.
definitively.
Got it. I see. All right. Ruth, are you in favor of the two paid questions being repeated in the current biennial satisfaction survey?
I am.
I am too.
I would like maybe a little bit more finesse to the, do you know that MMN exists? But I do think it's important as a new enterprise, if that's the right word, that we learn more about how people recognize us, if
Okay.
they do.
All right. Thank you. Vince, what about you? Do you want a couple of questions that put into the survey?
I'd have to look at the survey. Actually, there's, I think, a number of questions that could be put in there, depending on what the length of the survey is and, what the overall objectives are. But I'll review it and, send along some comments.
Okay. Odds are if there's going to be anything done, it'll be a repeat of exactly what was done 2 years ago. And my paraphrasing was, have you heard about MN? And if you have, what do you think of it? Or something along those lines. I'd like you say, I don't have it right here at the hand. Court, what about you? Would you be in favor of having the two questions repeated again?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, well, thank you for that input. I appreciate that. Let's move on. We have, just a reminder, we need to do a hard stop at 10:15 this morning. And what I'm going to do at this point is I want to switch the agenda around. I'm going to do the goals second to the last, just before I do the liaison comments. I'd like to switch up the prep questions for the Comcast representative visit. Now, that was a sheet that I had circulated around. Oh, no, we need to do something else. I skipped over something.
Oops.
Back up.
Okay.
The memo that I'd sent on the what's considered public education or government.
All right.
This was an answer to question 1. If we do nothing else this morning, we should resolve this because we had talked about doing one of these questions per meeting. Okay, Phil, this was one of the guidelines that Aaron had asked us to do. We're trying to tackle one question per meeting. So the question we're dealing with is, how should MMN classify videos as public education or government? I had drafted a memo with a review of what's currently done on each channel, what's currently available, and then a proposed response. So let's take a look at the PAC response. And what I have basically, and I want to know if this is my opinion. I want to know truly if you folks agree or disagree, or if you wanted to have it changed. The question, the response I'm suggesting, what's PE or G is, MN should retain the particular programs in their current categories and classify similar programs going forward. However, all Concord and Carlisle school district programs and videos should be transitioned to channel 99, which is the education channel. And the school superintendent and school committee should be informed of the date of this transition so they can inform their parents, teachers, and staff of the transition and the channel location. Now, that's the first part of it. So that's one point. Second, it's more of a tidying up. Also, the local events and the specials categories under public should be sifted for programming that should belong in education or government categories. Phil, that's something I think you folks pretty much can figure out. All right, this is the wrong one. And then the last piece is the PAC notes that classifying a program as public education government will not affect its placement on the town's YouTube channel, as the YouTube channel operates with playlists, not paid categories. So there are 3 components to this response. To me, the most important one is, do we shift all of the school things to the education channel? Because right now, school committee is on government. Court, I'm going to let you go first.
I believe it should stay on government. I think there's quite a distinction between an orchestra and a football game and a panel discussion as opposed to a school committee meeting or a Concord Middle School, which indeed is a town committee, but I think rightfully they are governmental activities, formally designated as such.
Okay, Ruth, I'm going to go to you next, and then Vince, and then Matt. Ruth first.
I agree with Court's statement. I agree with basically the memo. However, I would say that we are not in a position that any of our 3 channels are full. So that we should be able to take advantage of empty space and plug in programs, even if we think it's an education program, we could put it on another empty spot. I would like to have the community used to 3 full channels. And we can do that by running it first under community and then under education, or the reverse. I like government staying right in the government slot. Yes, and really to be encouraging all of our 40 plus committees to find a home on MMN. I think that's real. But as far as education / government with kids and community, I think we can fill them up.
Okay, now personally, I would agree. Just a moment, Phil. Personally, I would agree that it's important to keep 3 channels, especially as we go into the franchise renewal process. Okay, Phil, you had an observation?
Yeah, one point just to make, especially when these are live meetings. So for example, there are times that there are select board meetings that are scheduled, say for 4 p.m. and then at 5 or 5:30 or 6 p.m. there may be a school committee meeting that is also scheduled on the same day. So we do have to make arrangements at that point to carry them live. So, you know, in that case, we tend to default again, the first thing taking place, the select board meeting would be on the government channel, whereas then later the school committee meeting, because it's going live, would have to go onto the education channel. So there are some decisions that we do have to make in that capacity.
Okay, Vince, thank you, Phil. Vince, I haven't heard from you on this. How do you feel about, the question at this point is, should we shift the school committee meetings to the education channel or leave it on government? That's the first point.
Well, first, I agree, I think, with the comments from both Court and Ruth. And I think that the education channel should not be viewed simply as the school channel. In other words, I think there's more of an opportunity to maybe define it as something called learning and, you know, allocate that to some other public programming that would apply to that. So otherwise, I think your classification is very good. I think I'd agree with almost all of your other categorizations there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Matt, do you have an observation?
I just think that Phil's pragmatic approach is appropriate, that by default, I would absolutely agree that school committee meetings are government meetings, even though they're about the schools. But that if, for the sake of providing a live experience to the audience, that we need to move channels, that flexibility is great and we should utilize it.
Okay. All right, Court, go ahead.
Phil, if the 4 o'clock select board was going to continue and school committee was going to come in at 5 o'clock hypothetically, but on an alternate channel for that day, do you run a bottom third for 5 minutes to that effect and direct people over? And my second comment is, Vince.
Cut away from a select board meeting? What?
Be still my heart.
Come on, I want some competition here, Max. Well, Phil's pondering that. My second comment is, Vince, I think you might have hit upon a brilliant idea here, because maybe the term education brings forth this very question: where does the school committee live? Where learning does really embrace what I think is landing on that channel, Concord players and all kinds of things that might land there. Something for the future.
Oh, okay, if, just to go back for a moment, actually, Court, we have not done that, although that is a great idea, and I will take that suggestion because I think that would be helpful. I do know that, again, when we program something into our Telview Hypercaster, again, it does pop up on the schedule that would be on the TV. But again, once the program starts playing, you may not know that. So, to have something that just says, preempts or if you're tuned in for the 5 p.m. School committee meeting, please go to Government Channel 9. So that would be that's a great idea. And also, again, the education question, we do have things that, again, the Council of Aging does. We haven't done it in a little while, but Newbury Court, again, they'll have speakers. So does that fall under education or does that fall under public? So that is something that we do kind of go back and forth with, what should it fall under? And again, I think this is where we were looking for the guidance of you folks.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
I think we should keep in mind that while we have flexibility in how we put programming on channels, that there's a reason this is called PEG access and not plug access, right? So that this is not public learning in government, that, PEG access is a term, an industry term, and this is what we're doing. So just want to be careful as if not to blur things.
I appreciate that point. All right, I want to just give you a quick note. We have about 10 minutes left of this. I'm going to wind up this conversation now, and I want to move over to, we're going to skip the goals for today. And the reason why we're going to skip that, besides the shorter time, is Vince has very kindly sent me some, and said that I've circulated around, some ideas, some additional goals of what the committee could do. And that gets into a broader discussion of what we should be doing in the next going forward. So I'm going to put the goals meeting on the agenda for next time. I'll send around this draft of the goals plus Vince's again. And what I'd like you all to do is take a look at those two between now and the next time, because we'll be focusing primarily on the goals for our next discussion. The reason why I wanted to do the last 10 minutes is I have Nancy Pierce on here. I want her to be able to speak on her issue. It deals with Comcast. And what I'd like to do is before I go to Nancy, I want to have you take a quick look at the prep questions for Comcast. Now I'm going to be giving
Carlin?
Comcast. I'm sorry, go ahead. Who was that?
Carlin, just a comment on what I send. Those notations are not necessarily meant as edits to your goals and objectives. They are, to some extent, more future-oriented or things that probably would unfold over the course of a fairly significant period of time. So if people can view it in that context, I will try to send out some backup material to kind of emphasize the same point.
And I'll make sure that you have a good chunk. In fact, I'm going to ask you to lead this discussion on your piece when it comes up for the next time. So be ready for that. Okay, Vince? I think that'll work out really well. And I really do appreciate the perspectives on it. Okay, setting the goals aside, literally setting goals aside. Very briefly, the questions for the Comcast representative. I've given you some suggestions, and this is based on what we've asked him the last couple of times that Greg Frank has shown up. I have the schedule now, so I'll ask him when he's going to be available. But if you think of some other questions that you want to ask, you're welcome to send them to me or hold them until we meet with Greg. I'll let you know in advance when he'll be appearing. It's going to be probably the only time this year, I think, that we'll have a chance to talk to our Comcast representative. Questions I have briefly about what are your projections for subscriptions, rates, and revenues. What were the quarterly payments? The last time we had a figure about how many homes were passed. Please update this. We're going to ask them for a strand map of where Comcast has its coverage in Concord. Ask Comcast whether they have any plans to change or expand coverage. That's the status of the Carlisle franchise agreement, and I had a question about a low energy cable box. Okay, it's 10:06. I would like now to turn over to the to liaison comments, if there are any, from Cord and Matt, and from that I'm going to go to Nancy Pierce for public. So Matt and Cord, this is your liaison comment period. Matt, how about you? Anything from select board?
No, I don't think there's anything in particular other than my statement before about Veterans Day, but I do just have a personal comment. And again, I think that maybe Vince is clarifying some of this, that when I looked at the comments, I just wanted to be clear that, you know, when I mentioned that some of the other items previously might have been outside of the charter of the committee, I wasn't actually advocating for broadening the charter. I was really, you know, trying to say, hey, let's stay within the charter. And that for me, I think the kinds of things that I would like to see is a focus, as we've had in our discussion today, on, you know, monitoring the effectiveness of the operation. So for example, you know, relative to in the past, now that we've had new management for some time, are we getting more audience participation? Is the content relevant? Are the number of views versus the money that's being spent effective? Those kinds of details, I think, really could help as we try to steer the content, because it's really about the franchise agreement and then what the franchise agreement delivers to the town as a service, that quality of that service, rather than, I think, the technology. We do have in our goals in the select board to look at the new you know, wireless telecommunications, but that is likely to be an entirely separate subcommittee or committee, you know, as we go, and we'll see how far we can get this year. But you know, really, I just think there's plenty to do here and within the charter. So I just wanted to highlight that. And
Got it. Thank you, Matt. Court, did you have any other liaison observations before I open it up to?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, Nancy Pierce, I'm going to have you unmute yourself. I've asked you to come because you had a Comcast question. And part of what this committee has not really been doing much of, but could do, is helping consumers with their complaints about their Comcast service. Now, Nancy, you had asked me by email for some help, and why don't you tell them a little bit about what your issue was and how we resolved the issue as an example of solving the Comcast problem. Nancy, and also give your address, please.
Okay, I'm Nancy Pierce. Some of you know me as a reporter for the Carlisle Mosquito. I live at 1152 Westford Street in Carlisle. And because I had covered the committee as a reporter a couple of years ago, when I ran into an insoluble problem with Comcast, I reached out to Carlin and she put me in touch with Greg Franks. And the bottom line is my problem is solved. But she asked me to describe to you a little bit about what it was. And there are a couple points. I mean, I don't want to go into all the weeds except to say that I think I probably had maybe 10 phone calls over a period of the middle of July until last week, when somebody that Greg Franks assigned to me fixed everything in like one phone call. And the difficulties that I ran into were not that I don't think it was a complicated problem. It should not have been difficult to solve. Essentially, I decided to give up my DVR, which was costing me a certain amount to rent the DVR, and $10 a month for an HD technology fee. And I decided it wasn't worth paying it for that. And then I had to figure out how to get the DVR back to them and get credit for the fees that I was paying on my bill, which I think should have been a very simple matter. And then I wanted to get a cable box to replace the DVR so I could watch television on the TV that had the DVR on it. And it just, the people who I talked to on the phone were friendly, they were courteous, they didn't always seem to understand the problem, but they just didn't seem to be able to fix it. And time after time after time, I would call and I would be told by whoever I talked to yes, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z for you. I'm going to send you a prepaid label so you can mail back your DVR. I'm going to send you a cable box. I'm going to take the fees off. And then it just didn't happen. Or it would happen once and then the system would somehow reverse it. And then I would wait a couple weeks and then I would call again and I would go through the same thing. And I came to the conclusion that there was literally something about their IT infrastructure or, their software that was reversing whatever they tried to do for me, because so many times, at least 5 times, they told me they were going to send me a cable box and it just never came. And then when to make a long story short, Greg Franks assigned somebody to help me, and she had trouble. And she was like, this super executive customer service person, and she had to call the sales department and get some computer codes changed so that she could send me the cable box. And she also managed instantly to reverse the fees. So she even gave me credit for the last couple months that I've been paying for the DVR. And so, my impression about all this is that it's a system that the people actually seemed relatively well trained, except for there was one woman who told me that I had to pay, I think it was $250 to replace all my cable boxes because they were all discontinued, which I don't think is actually true, and that it would cost me another $150 a month for the service that I was going to get from this one little cable box for one little TV. Except for that, they all seemed to be trying really to be helpful, but there's something wrong with the system. Part of the problem was that they kept telling me that if I just would go to the store, that somebody could straighten it out at the store. But at my age and in my physical condition, I'm not going anywhere. And I kept saying to them, can't you fix it yourselves? So
Okay.
anyway,
Nancy-
that's all I have to say about it.
Nancy, thank you very much. I just wanted to have the committee hear what the next phase of our existence could involve, which is helping consumers like you solve your problems with Comcast. It's not an MMN issue, it's a Comcast issue. Okay,
Yeah.
other public comments. Now's your
Anyway,
chance.
thank you for your help.
Oh, sure, our pleasure, Nancy.
It was great relief.
Good. Any other public comments? David Allen, go ahead and unmute, please, and give your address.
iPads work differently. Wasn't going to say a thing, but Nancy, my goodness, what a tale with Comcast supposedly having pulled itself out of the dregs of customer service hell. And I've had actually excellent experience the very few times I've had to go with them. This makes it clear that there's still very serious problems there, which they may not even know about, for goodness sake. I would encourage getting this word out onto social media. I realize that may not be your thing, but there'll be places where you can tell this tale in a relatively neutral way without attacking Comcast and saying, hey, folks, let's get our act together. That's wild. That's disastrous. That's what drives companies down. Thanks for breaking the story.
Appreciate that. All right, it is now 10:15. We've got to do a hard stop at the last minute. Does any committee member have anything else to say? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn, please? I
So
think.
moved.
All right, we have a motion. Can I get a second to adjourn?
Second,
Great. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Court Booth, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vince Carlson, how do you vote?
All right.
Ruth Lauer, how do you vote?
aye.
Carla Reed, myself, I vote aye as well. Thank you all. Our next meeting is going to be December 10 at 9 a.m. and we will see you then. Thanks again.
Thanks, folks.